Alhamdulillah. First of all, I would like to welcome brothers and sisters on our dars, Sifatu Salat al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the description of the prayer of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as you have seen him. And today is our lesson number 6, al-Dars al-Sadis. So you have to bear in mind in your notes, for those who are taking notes, to take notes. Today is our 6th lesson. We hope that we are going to continue with our kitab, and we hope that we're going to benefit, inshallah. فليتفضل مشكورا. Yeah, we are, for those who are using these books, we're on the page 10, and the title is Prohibition of Prayer Facing the Grave. That is our title. We're going to start with today's lesson, Prohibition of Prayer Facing the Grave. He used to forbid prayer facing the grave, saying, do not pray towards the grave and do not sit on them.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een wa ala man tabi'a hudahum illa yawmiddin. I always in my classes believe that sitting in the class in the proper way, believe me, it does give an effect in understanding the class. So I could see here lots of gaps in between you. This is not the way we sit in front of our scholars and our shuyukh. The way that you're sitting is just maybe it's in a shisha club, but not in the masjid. No gaps, brothers, no gaps, no gaps, brothers, no gaps. Don't leave gaps. Praying towards the grave. This is very important topic because it links to our aqidah. Prophet ﷺ used to prohibit praying towards the grave. And he said, لا تصلوا إلى القبور ولا تجلسوا عليها. Do not pray towards the grave and do not sit over it. We have to understand this, and also we have to understand what is the implication of the prohibition here. First of all, لا تصلوا إلى القبور, that means do not make the grave as your qibla instead of the qibla. Where if the person, let's say for example, he had missed praying the janazah and he wants to go to the graveyard and he wants to put the grave of that person whom he had missed his prayer upon him, between him and the qibla, so he's praying yes towards the grave, but he's making the qibla is his qibla, then there is no problem. For verily the Prophet ﷺ, he had a woman whom happens to be cleaning the masjid. When she died, the companions didn't want to bother the Prophet of Allah because she died late. So they buried her during the Isha prayer. Following day, the Prophet of Allah, he said, where is she? The Messenger of Allah, she died last night, and he wouldn't want to disturb her. He said, don't do that. So he went to the grave and he put the grave between him and the Qibla. And then he offered Salat al-Janazah. So here the prayer of the Janazah, which doesn't have ruku' or sujood, and you're putting the grave between you and the Qibla, and your Qibla is the Qibla, not the grave, even though it's between you and the Qibla, then there is no problem. But any other prayer, apart from the prayer of the Janazah, that is, you pray the prayer which is called ruku' and sujood, regardless if you have put your Qibla is the Qibla, but you cannot put the grave in between. And that is why we say to the brothers who are in charge of the masajid to make sure that they don't put the janazah that is in the masjid in front, that is before the prayer of the obligation, and not to make the janazah to move to the front until they want to offer the janazah prayer. So they leave it at the back, where the back of the masjid, so nobody would be able to put in that janazah in front of him. So that people would come and pray Tahiyyat al-Masjid or whatever. Then they will offer the prayer of the obligatory. And after that, the Imam would announce the Janazah prayer, and then the body would be shifted to the front, but not to shift it from the beginning, because you'll be praying towards the dead. So praying the Janazah prayer where the dead person between you and the Qibla, or praying the Janazah prayer between you and the grave and between you and the Qibla is no harm, inshallah, for the Prophet of Allah had done it. And he also done it 8 years later after the burial of the Shuhada Uhud. He went to Uhud, Shuhada, martyrs, and he offered the prayer. It's like saying farewell. He died after that. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So we understand now that the prayer which has got the ruku' and the sujood should never be for a person who is fresh body or a person who is being buried in the grave. And also, you're not allowed in the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ to choose a spot next to the grave. So it's not just to pray towards the grave, but to choose a spot where it's in the vicinity of the grave. Because this is taking the graveyard as a places of a prayer. And one of the places you're not allowed to pray in is the graveyard. The graveyard is only for Salat al-Janazah. Just like you're putting the grave there, but you cannot bring as well the fresh body and put it in the graveyard and offer Salat al-Janazah. No. You do that somewhere else, in Musalla al-Janazah or in the masjid. But you could put the grave itself, not the fresh body. As in terms of the person offering a normal prayer, Dhuhr, Asr, Rak'ah, or for example, let's say voluntary prayer, he may not choose a vicinity of a grave. Because this is taking the graveyard as a masajid, places for prayer. Prophet ﷺ, he said, لا تتخذوا بيوتكم مقام. Do not take your houses as graveyards and offer the prayers in them. So if you don't offer the prayer in your house, you're taking it as what? As a graveyard. It's a cemetery where there's no prayer. So make sure that you offer some of the prayers of yours in the house, especially the voluntary, the sunnah. People come to here and offer the dhuhr, plus the sunnah of the dhuhr, and the sunnah before the dhuhr, sunnah after the dhuhr. They offer all their prayers, especially the Isha, and after that he will do the witr, the sunnah of the Isha, and the witr, all of that. And in the masjid, they go home, prays nothing. So he leaves his house out of prayers. And this is giving it similarity, just like the what? Cemetery. And also we're not allowed to build masajid over the graves. Take graves and put masajid on top of it. If it is the case, we have to demolish the masjid. And we're not allowed as well to bury someone in the masjid. So the masjid is being built and to bury someone, then we have to dig that person out and bring him out of the masjid. So if the grave was first and then the masjid was built upon it, then we demolish what? The masjid. If the masjid was first and then we put somebody there and bury him, then we would take that body out of the masjid. And we have to do that, otherwise we are falling into the prohibition. Habiba and Salama, may Allah be pleased with them, our mothers, the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, they went to Abyssinia in the migration, first and the second. And then when the Prophet ﷺ, in his last days, and he was under the fever, and he had a towel on top of him to cool him down on his face. So Salama and Habiba, they started talking about the churches that they have seen in Abyssinia, how beautiful and decorated they were. So the Prophet ﷺ heard them speaking about that. So he took the towel off and he said, أولئك شرار الخلق. Those are the worst of creation. إذا مات فيهم الصالح. If the righteous person is to die amongst them, اتخذوا على قبره مسجدا. They will build over his grave a place of prayer. ثم صوروا فيه تلك التصاوير. And then they will make these images, engrave these images on the graves. ألا تتخذوا قبوركم مساجد. Do not take your graves as for places for prayer. This is where the religion has drifted away from the path. They started by lingering around the graves. This was at the time of Nuh alayhi salam, when the people of Nuh, they taken Wad wa Suwa' wa Yaghuth wa Ya'uq wa Nasr, 5 gods. What are these gods? Ibn Abbas, he says, those are the names of 5 righteous people. Righteous, good people. When they died, these people, those people who had honored these people, they used to go and linger themselves into the grave, because the shaitan told them, you have to go to the graveyard and start to contemplate in order to do as good as these righteous people. Then after that, he told them, well, you only remember them when you are in the graveyard. So why don't you make a statue of each of them and put it in your house so you could remember them 24/7, not just when you are in the graveyard. So they liked that idea. So they made a statue for them in their houses. Then slowly, these people had died, did not worship them. But the next generation came. And shaitan is alive. Iblis does not die, because Allah has given him the immortality. So he said to them, for verily your fathers, they used to worship them. So they worship them. That's how it starts. That's now Ummah Muhammad, we have this. You must have heard about these people who have worshipped Sayyid al-Badawi, al-Jilani. You've heard about this. Sitt Zainab. They go to the graves and they offer the prayer. And now there is a revival for this shirk. There is a revival for these shrines. And they say, we are not doing something wrong. We are actually taking those who are in the grave to be intercessors. Subhanallah. This is what the mushrikeen or people of Quraysh used to do. So we're not worshipping those in their graves, but we know that these people are righteous, and the only one can make us to link to God is those people, the righteous people. It's exactly the same shirk of those people of Quraysh. Those people even worse. They've taken for themselves aqtab, 5 qutub, to run the world. So instead of calling upon Allah, they call upon the qutub. Even before that night, qutub so and so help me, qutub so and so help me. A'udhu billah. These people had taken themselves outside the fold of Islam. So we understand now, do not pray ruku' and sujood towards the grave. Do not take the graveyard as a place for prayer. Do not build masjid on top of the graves. Do not bury someone into masjid. Also, do not pray on top of it. So if we're not allowed to pray towards it, we can't pray what? Over it. So the Christians and the Jews, when they have built these shrines, the hadith says that is they used to pray on it, but out of respect, they don't want to humiliate that person by praying on top of him. They pray what? Next to him, in the vicinity of his. And also, وَلَا تَجْلِسُوا عَلَيْهَا. Do not sit on it. This is not for the shirk, but this is for prohibition, haram. A Muslim grave, you're not allowed to step over it. You're not allowed to sit over it. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, for verily the person, for him to sit on a burning coal that would go through his clothes and all the way to his skin, it is better, less painful will be to him than sitting on the grave. Look at that. To sit on a burning coal that would go through his what? His clothes and goes all the way to his skin and burn him, it much easier than sitting on the grave. We find these days, Muslims, when they go and bury somebody, subhanallah, they sit in the grave and have a cigarette as well. They have a cigarette. How can you, in such a place where you're supposed to contemplate and make the death as a reminder for you, and then you sin and openly, and you have the audacity to make a sin in a place where you're supposed to be remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Prophet ﷺ, he said, أَلَا إِنِّي قَدْ نَهَيْتُكُمْ عَنْ زِيَارَةِ الْقُبُورِ. Verily I have forbade you from visiting the graves. أَلَا فَزُورُوهَا. Come and visit it. For verily it reminds you of the akhirah. But do not say except for good. وَلَا تَقُولُوا هُجْرًا. Now, Prophet of Allah forbade them at the beginning to visit it, because when the Muslim used to come from the kufr to the iman, some of their hearts are lingered and linked to the shirk. They used to make shirk in the graveyard. So at the beginning he forbade them to come to the graveyard. But when the iman, mashallah, grew in their hearts, he said to them, I used to prohibit you, now visit the graves. Come to the graves. And the visit is not just for the male, also for the female. In contrast, some of the fatah of the shuyukh, for verily Aisha radiallahu anha, she visited the grave of her brother. So visiting the grave for the women is allowed as long as she covers herself properly. To visit the grave for the women is not supposed to be as frequent as the men. For the Prophet of Allah, he said, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ زَوَّارَاتِ الْقُبُورِ. May Allah, or Allah had cursed the women who visit the graves frequently. So to visit the graves just like the men all the time is not allowed for the women, because they're under the curse. But to prohibit them totally from the visit, the hadith regarding that in Surah At-Tirmidhi, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ زَائِرَاتِ الْقُبُورِ. Allah had cursed the women who visit the graves. This is unauthentic. But زَوَّارَاتِ الْقُبُورِ, the one who frequently visit the graves, that's the authentic. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ, he said to Aisha before he died, said, what about if you die before me, so I could wash you, shroud you, bury you, and pray upon you. Okay, so visiting the graves for the Prophet ﷺ, basically he had said, or this hadith is not linked actually to what we've been saying, but we know that Aisha radiallahu anha wa ardaha, she said to the Prophet ﷺ, Messenger of Allah, if I want to visit the grave, what should I say? So he taught her dua, the entrance of the graveyard. Assalamu alaikum أهل الديار من المؤمنين والمسلمين وإنا إن شاء الله بكم لاحقون نسأل الله لنا ولكم العافية. Now this chapter has been fully, alhamdulillah, explained, and as I said, it's a very important issue. Prophet of Allah focused upon it just before he died. Not only that, he said, اللهم لا تجعل قبري وثنا يعبد. اللهم لا تجعل قبري وثنا يعبد. Oh Lord, do not make my grave as an idol, a statue worship beside you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fulfilled the supplication of his Prophet by putting these 3 solid walls onto the grave of the Prophet of Allah. No one will be able to reach the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. No one, even the king. So Allah responded to the supplication of the Prophet, and that is, O Lord, do not make my grave as an idol worship beside you. So there's 3 walls. The original room of Aisha's wall, which has no windows, no doors, completely blocked. Then after that, they built the triangle wall. The triangle wall to make sure that nobody can face the grave, because the grave of the Prophet along with it is the grave of Abu Bakr and the grave of Umar. And then the 3rd square on top of that, so the 3rd one square, so you have the square one, which is the room, then a triangle, then a square one. On top of that square one, this is the green dome, if you have seen it in Medina. It's been built onto that 3rd wall. These 3 walls, they don't have any entrance. You can't go inside. It's impossible to make any ibadah to the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Otherwise, he would have been the shrine. If people go to, for example, Al-Jilani, Prophet of Allah, they might go to him. And that's why when the Prophet of Allah died, he was buried in the room where he died. And Aisha, she said, had it been that he would be worshipped beside Allah, he would have been buried where? In the cemetery, in Baqi al-Gharqad. But he was buried where he died, exactly on top of the bed of Aisha. They removed the bed and they dug underneath. Now, in your booklet, which is Talkhis Sifat Salat al-Nabi, the abbreviation of Salat al-Nabi, after praying towards the grave, which is a prohibition, the author goes about something which we have explained already, but it's not on your book. You've added it, which is, for example, that is the prohibition of passing between the person who pray and his sutra, even if it's to be in the Masjid al-Haram. These are added topics from the Shaykh. As I said, the Talkhis came later on. Talkhis came what? Later on. It's the last abbreviation. So in that Talkhis, Shaykh Al-Albaani mentions the following points, and I need to mention them. That he says it is not prohibited to pass between the person who prays and his sutra, and there is no difference between Masjid al-Haram and other masajid. For all these masajid the same regarding the impermissibility of passing between the person and his sutra. And the Prophet of Allah, he says, if the person who wants to pass knows what is upon him, if he passes between the person who prays and his sutra, he would have rather stood up for 40 better than passing in front of him. That means 40, could be 40 minutes, 40 hours, 40 days, 40 months, 40 years, Allahu A'lam, to stay 40. So the prohibition is between, if he hasn't got a sutra, is between the person and his spot of what? Prostration. So you could measure between his feet and his prostration spot about 1.5 meters. So go 1.5 meters and then pass beyond it. If he's got a sutra, no problem, alhamdulillah. But if he hasn't got a sutra, 1.5 meters between, so you could really imagine where he's going to prostrate, and then you pass. Shaykh Al-Albaani also, Rahimahullāh, he says that is wujub. We have to prevent the person who is praying now, he has to prevent the person who's trying to pass in front of him, even if it is in the Masjid al-Haram. He made all of these titles because some people had differentiated and made it is different between Masjid al-Haram and other masajid. And they said, for example, Masjid al-Haram it does not implement the same rules. He said, what is the difference? Prophet of Allah's ahadith were triggered when he was in the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ. They were not triggered to any other masjid. So he says, if a person prays to a sutra, he's not allowed, this person who prays, to leave any person to pass between him and the sutra. Because the Prophet said, وَلَا تَدَعْ أَحَدًا, do not let anyone to pass between you and your sutra. Prophet of Allah also, he said, إِذَا صَلَّى أَحَدُكُمْ إِلَى شَيْءٍ يَسْتُرُهُ مِنَ النَّاسِ. If a person prayed towards a sutra that would prevent him and protect him from the people, وَأَرَادَ أَحَدٌ أَنْ يَجْتَازَ بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ, and any person wanted to cross in between him and the sutra, فَلْيَدْفَعْ فِي نَحْرِ, let him push in his chest, وَلْيَدْرَأْ مَا اسْتَطَاعَ, and let him make sure as much as he can to keep that person away from crossing. Another narration, فَلْيَمْنَعْ, let him prevent him twice. If he refuses, then he is shaitan, let him fight him. And we explained that, as I said, as an addition from my own talks, but as I said, I need to just mention these titles. Then he says, Al-Mashu ila al-amami li-man'i al-murur, to walk towards the front, to the sutra, in order to prevent the person to pass between him and the sutra. And he says this is permissible, that the person would go step or two step or more in order to make the one who has no common sense to pass, not to make him to pass between him and the sutra. Or the person who is not being obligated to stop. Like what? Animals. Like what? Children. So if it's a child or it's an animal, he says, then you know that the child or the animal, if you put your hand, he's not going to stop. He's going to pass between you and the sutra. So what you need to do, go one step, two step towards the what? The wall or the sutra of yours, and let the child pass where? Behind you. Or the sheep to pass where? Behind. So you treat the child like a sheep because they don't understand. Then he talks about what cut off the prayer, which we have explained. And he says, مَا يَقْطَعُ الصَّلَاةِ, that is, he says, verily, from the importance of the sutra, which I have added, remember, to your notes, from the importance of the sutra is that it does actually protect the person's prayer from being invalidated. Where the one who does not take sutra, he is jeopardizing and he's putting his prayer at stake. He could jeopardize his prayer if one of the three passes between him and his prostration spot, and that is the woman who is adult, or the dog, that is the black one, or the donkey. Remember those things that we talked about? طيب. Now those are the things that I said. The Shaykh mentioned them in Kitab Talkhis Sifat Salat al-Nabi. The Shaykh also in Asl al-Sifah, that is the origin of this book. This book, this is the one we explained. This is the one which is the abbreviated one. But there is one 3 times the size of this, which is the asl, the origin, with everything and details in it. The Shaykh there, later on he adds chapters which hasn't been printed in this book. Those chapters, I'll go through them, to do with the dress of the prayer, which is very important. We need to know about the dress of the prayer. So he says, Al-libasu fi salah. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would enter the salah with whatever he has from his clothes. So he does not take, he says, a specific cloth or a garment. He does not take a specific color, except for the Jumu'ah prayer. As I said, this is not in your book. If you'd like to add it, let's see some points there, put in your book. So, Prophet of Allah, he would enter the prayer with whatever is available. He does not specify a specific sort of clothes, except for the Jumu'ah. Jumu'ah, for verily, he used to take like a, the Arabic garb, abaya, and all of that, so to show that he is in the best, smartest clothes. Right, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he would always ask us if we have like a sarwal, to have on top of the sarwal like a qamis, to prevent showing the area where the awrah is between the navel and the knees. Prophet of Allah, he forbade for the man to pray in the sarawil without the rida, which is on top of the sarawil. Now these days, and I'm telling the brothers who's got the trousers, brothers, the trousers are not like sarawil. Sarawil are baggy. Yet the Prophet of Allah prohibited in praying even in baggy sarwal. You know the sarwal for the Pakistani sarwal? I'm talking about the original Pakistani sarwal. Because these days now the Pakistani sarwal started to shrink. Goes less and less. The original one. The original one, they also in Syria, Bilad Sham, used to have one. So big, you could even, I would say, smuggle one of the big TVs inside it. That's how big it is. But yet, Prophet of Allah, he said, this sarawil should have on top of your rida, not just a sarwal. So, Prophet of Allah, he wanted you to cover your shoulders, because your shoulders in the prayer is a awrah. Even though it's not a awrah for men to look at the men, but it's a awrah, a shoulder. So for those who got trousers, Shaykh Al-Albaani strongly condemned these things, and he says the person, when he is making his prostration, and then he says with his words bluntly, where his testicles hanging between his legs and people can see it, how can he prostrate before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How can he, with his private part showing the size and everything, prostrate before Allah Azza wa Jal? And he says, for verily the area between the navel and the knees is a common awrah between us and the female. Do we allow our females, if you have any hint of iman in your heart, do we allow our female to have a trouser between the navel and the knees? We don't. Why? Well, it's the same awrah. Man between the navel and the knees, and the woman between navel and knees is awrah. So both are awrah. Why are you so keen to cover the woman? Dare you to come out with that, covering that area, and you yourself, no problem for you. That area is the same between the navel and the knees. It's awrah. So like you don't want your wife, daughter, sister, and rightly so, not to put a trouser, regardless even if it's a baggy one, you don't want it. You want a abaya, the area. Same thing, you should have abaya in that area as well, in the navel, and that is a common awrah. So for those who has got tight trousers, or even jeans trousers, or even worse, the leather trousers, divorce them. At divorce, they don't go back to them. Divorce them 3 times. For verily they are not good. If you're going to have them, then you can have to cover them. So every time you pray, I have seen some of the masajid, because there are workers, they can't really work in these dish dashes. They have their abaya hooked. I've seen them. Have you got them? Yeah?
We've got a few here.
Okay. I just been now to Bedford Masjid. Bismillah. And I have seen about 6-7 abayat, mashallah, hanging. For those people, they come and sunnah is spreading, stick the abaya, pray with it, and then hang it back. That's a good thing. Jazakumullahu khairan. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam also, he said, do not dress up with a samma. Samma is basically a cloth or a abaya that it does not have sleeves, so you wrap yourself with it. It's like a blanket. This is called ishtimal al-samma. Samma means like it's got no ears. That means got no sleeves. If you want to wrap yourself with something like this, then you have to put it between your hands. So if it's like this, so you do it like that. So you put your hands outside. That's how you pray. You don't pray where it's locking you like this. Also, you're not allowed to have this abaya, which has got sleeves, or a jacket, to pray on it by throwing it on your shoulders without putting your hands onto your sleeves. Unless you're going to do like this as well. Same thing. You put your hands like that outside. You're not allowed to put it this way and cover yourself and start putting your hands from underneath. Okay? That's in the prayer. So to do like this. So we say like that. We do like this. All right. So you understand now. In the terms of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had prayed in a jacket, jubba shamiyya, from Sham. The Sham were made from the Romans, so no problem if he had a jacket, the normal jacket. Prophet of Allah, he had that jacket, dayiqatul kummain. It was really very tight in its sleeve, which is a normal jacket like ours now, very tight, not like the thawb, which is very, mashallah, big. So whenever he wanted to make wudu, he would take his hand off the sleeves and he start making wudu, and then he puts it back because he can't roll it back really tight on his hands. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We almost finished because okay. If you did not have a top which to cover your shoulders, and you have the bottom half, if that bottom half is big enough, like an izar, so you could part of it, you throw it in your on your shoulder. These shoulders are awrah in the prayer. And if you are praying with a vest, the vest, if that vest is not full under the shoulder, you're not allowed to use it. If it's just a rope, like a rope hanging where most of the shoulder is showing, then that
Sleeveless.
Huh?
Sleeveless.
Sleeveless. Okay, sleeveless. That means without sleeves. Yeah? So just a rope. And this is mentioned in the fiqh Shafi'i and all of that. Is it allowed for a person to pray where his shoulder is exposed and he's got a rope on him? Alhamdulillah, you've got the rope now, which is the same as the sleeveless. So those ones, you're not allowed to pray them. Your prayer is invalid. Unless you've got the sleeves that would what? Cover your shoulders. That's what you should do, and make sure you cover that. Covering the shoulder can be jeopardized a lot in Hajj, when people start exposing the right shoulder, okay, to rotate around the Kaaba, and then after that they don't put it back, and they pray their 2 rak'ah after the 2 rak'ah behind the miqam, and that, according to our correct what we believe from the madhab, which is madhab Imam Ahmad, it will jeopardize your prayer, because the Prophet of Allah forbade a person to pray in such a way. طيب. When the person prays, always prays in the best of clothes. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He talks about it, and He says to us, خُذُوا زِينَتَكُمْ, take your beauty عند كل masjid, and every time that you pray, take your zina, beautify yourself, because you're praying before your Lord. So it's not really correct to go and pray in the clothes which are dirty. Some of, like, for example, people work like a butcher, and he prays with the same clothes that he's got blood on top of it, some meat on top of it, and you should not be praying like that. You should be praying خُذُوا زِينَتَكُمْ, take your beauty every time you pray, inshallah. طيب. For the women, when they pray at home, they should be praying with clothes that would cover their awrah, and their awrah is all their body except for the following in the prayer. Number 1, the face. Number 2, the palms. And number 3, the bottom of their feet. Everything else is awrah. So the top of their feet is awrah. If they prayed with the top of their feet is uncovered, their prayer is invalid. So they have to pray where their dress is long enough to cover the top of their feet. If they prostrate and the bottom of their feet showed, no problem. At home, they don't have to have the abaya. They could pray with the prayer where, as long as it is not tight clothes, just like the men, not tight clothes. It doesn't matter whether it's colorful or not colorful, because you're inside the house. You're praying. Make sure that you cover your hair properly, and you cover your body properly, and most importantly, where women, they don't really bother about the top of their feet, I would advise them to put the socks on, to make sure that their feet will not show. So this is the prayer for the women. Now, as for the pattern of the prayer, it is not good to have clothes, whether it's male or female, which they have patterns in them so much that there will be distraction for himself or for the people behind. Prophet ﷺ, he's been given from Abu Jahm a gift, which is khamisa. It's like a clothes, jumper or whatever, a clothes that he would use it in the prayer, and it had lots of patterns on it. So he sent it back, and he said to him, send me the one which has got no patterns. You know, the one with no pattern is always cheaper anyway. Send me the one. So I'm not really refusing your gift, but your gift is not good for me when I pray, and it's going to take my side. Now, as I said, some of the people that have words, these words can be obstruction and distortion and disturbance for the person praying behind you. Now he's praying and focusing what he's going to read in your back. Okay? He's reading what is in your back, or reading what is in your sleeves. So make sure that when you pray, don't have all these patterns and writings and all of that. One of the people almost made me laugh. He was praying in front of me, and he was saying, well, I'm on wudu. He's got the word, I am on wudu. So of course you're on wudu, you're praying. He's got a jumper, it's called, I am on wudu. Allahu musta'an. So I've never seen this before. Of course, the second time I did not laugh, but another one, he said, your mom's best 3 words, ask your dad. Your mom's best 3 words, ask your dad. I can't forget these things. I read them with a brother, he was praying with us. Your mom's best 3 words, ask your dad. That means, don't bother me. Alhamdulillah, I would say that we almost have finished all of that. Well, alhamdulillah, we finished all the to do with the clothes in general. Remember, the Prophet of Allah, he said that Allah will not accept the prayer of a woman who does not cover her head. Let's go to the following, which is intention.
On the footnote as well. With the footnote just there.
Okay, the footnote for the qabr. The qabr, not the intention. Just yes, you got to read the intention and the footnote. Yes.
He sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to say, all actions are.
There's no intention there. It says
intention.
Intention. Yeah, all right.
The title is intention.
No.
He sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to say, all actions are by intention. and every man shall have what he intended.
Okay, this is Sahih Bukhari number 1, this hadith.
And this Bukhari Muslim is given in Irwa.
Okay, can you just tell us now what is onto the intention, please? There is a footnote.
On the footnote, Nawawi says in Rawd al-Talibin, published by Maktab al-Islami, the intention, the purpose. So the person about to pray brings to mind that prayer and what is relevant of its characteristics, such as which prayer it is, whether it's obligatory, etc. He brings these things together in his intention with the first takbir.
Right. Intention comes naturally. When you stand to pray, your intention is already there. When you want to make wudu, your intention is already there. So his intention is your will to do what you are intending to do. That's your intention. So if a person is about to do the prayer, his intention that he wants to do the prayer, that's the intention. He doesn't need to utter it to say, I intend to pray. So he's standing for the prayer, that's an intention. Now he's going to start to say, I am in a prayer, I want to do the prayer, then either he is doing a bid'ah or something wrong with his brains. One of the two. Maybe he's not fully there. So if he's going to sit to the wudu and remind himself, I'm going to do wudu. Somebody says, well, what are you doing then? You're sitting to the wudu, you're going to make wudu. So a person is about to sit in the kitchen, eat. I intend to eat. What are you going to say to him? Brother, just eat. What do you want to do? I intend to eat. Sah or la? Person who's bursting, he wants to go to the toilet. He wants to go to the, hang on a second, before I go to the, I intend to go and urinate. That's crazy. You just go to the urination. So once you want to do what you want to do, that's your intention. There's no such thing that you're going to utter what you want to do. I intend to open the book. And that doesn't work like that. Sah? Same thing with the prayer. I stand to the prayer, that means that's my intention. But I need to say words to start my prayer. What's the word to start my prayer? Allahu Akbar. That's it. Allahu Akbar. That's my... But there is a mistaken issue regarding what has been quoted from the followers of Imam Shafi'i, saying that in the intention of the prayer, he says that in the Hajj we make our intention not like the prayer, we make it loud. That's not intention in the Hajj. This is the Hajj word. The intention of yours could be today. I intend to make Hajj, which is in about 3, 4, 5 months. That's my intention for the Hajj. But when I go there and I'm in the station, I'm about to cross now to make the Hajj, then I would say Labbaik Allahumma bihajj, which is equivalent to Allahu Akbar when I do the prayer. So when I start my prayer, I say Allahu Akbar. I'm in the prayer now. I will finish from the prayer when I say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I finish from the prayer. So this is called the intention. So the intention basically is your willing or your will to do something. It is not to utter or to be uttered. This intention, where the fuqaha they talk about, is that you know what you are about to do, which is not linked to your tongue, is linked to the heart, to your heart. And I'll give you an example. For those who say that you have to utter the words, they say to him, well, your words is not the asl, it's your intention is the asl. So let's say that now you come into the dhuhr prayer and you know it is dhuhr, but somehow because you came a bit late and you want to catch up with the imam, you stood up in the prayer and said Allahu Akbar. Before you said Allahu Akbar, I intend to pray for rak'ah asr. Allahu Akbar. You uttered the word what? Asr. You uttered the word what? Asr. And you are intending what? Dhuhr. You know that you come into the dhuhr, but you have made a linguistic mistake, mistake in the tongue. Slip of tongue. You made what? Asr. Is the prayer valid or not valid? Valid. Because it goes what is in your heart. In your heart. It doesn't go what's in your tongue. Your tongue, it could be slipped of the tongue. That's why we said it's a bid'ah to say that. It's not correct. Why do you have to say it? But let's say it's the opposite. Okay? You came And you thought, because you woke up, you thought the Imam is praying not Dhuhr, praying what? Asr. And you are about to stand in the prayer, and you said, Nawaitu nusalli al-Dhuhr. Slip of a tongue, you made the Dhuhr, which is the correct Salah. But your intention is what? Think it is what? Is your prayer valid? No, it's not valid. Because what is being the rule regarding the validation goes into the what? Onto the heart. Brothers, can we just fill up the gaps? It's not correct. Fill up the gaps, brothers. Fill up the gaps. There's gaps in between us. Fill up the gaps. Everybody, fill up the gaps. Come just forward, please. Come forward. Come forward. When the gaps are there, people start, shaitan comes and makes his job. Jazakumullahu khairan. Adhering to the sunnah. Fill up the gaps. So when somebody goes, fill up the gap. So your intention basically is what is in your heart. That's the intention. Allah will judge you on your intention. What you have intended. I'll give you another example for the intention, to understand how Islam judges your intention. Look, a Muslim who had left his wife to travel for a journey. He left, and when he came back, when the person comes back from a long journey, he wants his wife. His wife, she's got a twin sister. Looks like her. He didn't tell his wife he's coming on that particular night. The sister of his wife, she visited her sister, and she stayed on the same bed. So the husband came in, thinking he did what? His wife. Approached her in a marital relation, intercourse. Is that zina or not zina? He doesn't know, akhi. Zina or not zina? He didn't know. She was asleep, and he basically made the marital with her, thinking it was his what? His wife. In Islam, that's not zina, and the judge will not implement zina upon them because he didn't know. When he realized, he stopped, because he thought it was what? His wife, and there is no lights, dark, and his wife looks like the sister of hers, is a twin of hers. That's not zina. But listen now to the other scenario. Husband left his wife, but he's looking for, a'udhu billah, prostitute. To somewhere he's gone. When he left, she took her opportunity. She's looking for a man. So she left to look for a man. They ended up in the same place. She's looking for a man, and he's looking for a woman. At that time there was no electricity, so he wanted that particular woman. They ended up making intercourse. That's called zina, even he's doing it with what? With his own wife. See the intention? Because she was doing it for the sake that he's another man, and he's doing it for the sake of another woman. Even it's his wife, but that's fornication. Intention is very important, and that's why he said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ. All acts are based upon intention. Your intention is the most important thing. This is the intention, as I said, of the fuqaha, but there's another intention of the Aqidah scholars. The Aqidah scholars, they talk about another intention, which is more important. This is the intention when you do the ibadah, you do it for the sake of Allah. Yes, you are knowing that it is dhuhr. Yes, you're knowing this is asr. Yes, you are knowing this ibadah is so and so. That's the intention of fuqaha. But are you doing this prayer for the sake of Allah, or for the people to say, wow, he prays like the Prophet ﷺ? Are you doing it for the sake of that you would be promoted when they see people, oh, he prays, let him work with us? Which type of intention that you have? This is, we call it al-ikhlas, sincerity. Are you sincere in your prayer? And that's very important intention. When I do my ibadah, I want to make sure that it is 100% for Allah. If it's 99.9, it's not going to be accepted. At 0.9, where is it gone? Why is it for somebody else? It's for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibadah to be Allah Azza wa Jalla on the day of resurrection. Those people who show off, He would tell them, go to the ones whom you used to do your ibadah to, let them reward you. Are they going to reward them? They are in need of help themselves. Can you reward me? What am I talking about? I'm worried for myself. I'm not going to give you anything. Go to the ones whom you used to please, let them please you. Let's see that you're going to please you or not. So be careful. Your ibadah will not be accepted. Then he says, At-Takbir. Tfaddal. And we'll stop, inshallah, when we finish the Takbir.
Takbir. Then he sallallahu alayhi wasallam will commence the prayer by saying Allahu Akbar. Allah is the greatest. This is from Muslim and Ibn Majah. The hadith contains an indication that he did not use to commence it with the words of some people, I intend to pray, etc., which is in fact agreed to be an innovation. But they differ as to whether it is good or bad innovation, which we say, indeed, all innovations in worship are misguided. From the generality of his statement, Allah alayhi salatu wassalam, and all innovations are misleading, and every misleading thing is in the fire. But this is not the place for a detailed discussion of this.
Basically, in the deen, everything is not allowed except if you have a proof. قال Allah, قال Rasul. You cannot introduce anything new in religion, can you? No. It's been closed, sorry, can't add. Can't add to the deen. The deen is perfected and complete with the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We find people, I don't know if your country, but in my country, and I myself when I was a kid, I was taught this following. You come to the prayer, you say, Nawaitu an usalli arba' rak'at fard hadar jama'a khalf al-imam. It's a long thing. I used to memorize it when I was a kid. I intend to pray 4 rak'ah congregation, and it is hadar present. And I said, every time I make a mistake, Mom, what is it again? Tell me, Mom, what is it? I intend 4 rak'ah. And actually it had stopped me from praying. It's too much for me to memorize. People even add khalf al-imam, and then he mentions his name and where he lives. It's like a postal address. And God knows what's going to happen to his prayer if the imam said, oh, I haven't got wudu. Then he leaves. Then he has to intention now, new intention. What's your name, brother? I intend to pray for rak'ah. And then he mentions where he live, and then he gives him as well his address. What is this? Do I need to do that? He said, Allahu Akbar. Khalas, that's fine. So let's come to the prayer. Allahu Akbar. Ya salam. If I knew this when I was a kid, I would have never stopped praying when I was a kid. I'm talking about when I was 4 years old, 5 years old. I hated that they teach me something which is not out of the prayer. I don't want to pray like this. So they told me, Allahu Akbar, Ya salam, Allahu Akbar, khalas. Why I intend. All of these things because they've been added, very hard for you to memorize something which is not from Allah. But with words of Allah, very easy to memorize it. Allahu Akbar, finished. Now he says, basically, the hadith of the Prophet, kullu bid'atin dhalal, all innovations to be misguided. There is no such thing, bid'ah hasana. Bid'ah hasana in the dunya, not in the deen. Deen is closed. Kullu bid'atin, all innovations to be, that is dhalal, misguidance. And he commanded,
he ordered the man who prayed badly to do likewise as has been mentioned, and he said to him, verily, the prayer of a person is not complete until he has made an ablution which has included the necessary parts of the body and has then said Allahu Akbar. And this is in the Tabrani with Sahih Isnad.
Go on, continue, please.
He would also used to say, the key to the prayer is purification. It is entered by takbir and exited by taslim.
Give us the footnote of the day.
This one from Abu Dawood, At-Tirmidhi and Hakim, who declared Sahih, and Dhahabi agreed.
No, before that there's a footnote. No?
Yeah, not in this one.
Between Tabarani and Abu Dawud there's no footnote?
No, with the Sahih it's not on nothing else.
This, for example, that is from where it says that the prohibition when you enter the Salah. No?
It's not on this one.
Where about you? You didn't read that. Can you read that for me? Number 4. After that, do you understand me? Yeah, go on.
You want to repeat again, yeah? The hadith contained that he did not use it to commence with the words of some people, I intend to pray, etc., which is in fact agreed to be an innovation, but they differ.
No, this one. What you were reading here?
Mm-hmm.
So what is here, maybe?
The next one, literally, number 6.
Yeah.
Literally, the takbir makes haram in the actions which Allah has made haram during it, and the taslim makes it halal. That is what is allowed outside prayer. Just as the hadith prove that the door to the prayer is shut, no worshipper being able to open it except with purification. It similarly proved that the prayer cannot be entered except with takbir, and that it cannot be exited except with taslim. This is the view of the majority of the scholars.
So basically, the key for the prayer to make the purification. To enter it, takbir. To exit it, taslim. Between the entrance and the exit, you are only allowed to do what is in the prayer. So you're not allowed, for example, to sew your clothes. You're not allowed to eat a sandwich. You're not allowed to start laughing. You're not allowed to start to talking. Because you are between the prayer entrance and the exit, you only do the rituals of the prayer. Is that understandable? Right. Also, after that please.
Also, he used to raise his voice for the takbir, such that those behind him could hear.
So he would raise it in such a way that it would be for those people behind him to hear it. So he would raise his voice accordingly. So if you have one person or two people behind you and you are the imam, is it from the correct manner to say Allahu Akbar? Is that correct? No. You're terrorizing what's behind you? No. So your takbir is just for those two people. And also if you have 50 people behind you, is it from the right manner to say Allahu Akbar? No. Well, what about the 50 people? Going to hear you? They can't hear you. So you do it according to what is behind you. Prophet of Allah, he would make it that even when he enters in his house and there is one who's asleep and one who's awake, he would utter his salam to such an extent that is audible to the awake and he's not going to wake the one who's asleep. That's how it is. He enters the house, Assalamu alaikum. So you could hear it and I will not as well upset and disturb the one who's asleep.
But when he fell ill, Abu Bakr used to raise his voice to convey the takbir of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the people.
But when he got ill, Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's voice was not able to reach the ones who are behind. So Abu Bakr, he would repeat the takbir of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is important to know. It will be a bid'ah, an innovation. If the Imam's takbir can reach the people, and yet there is someone who would repeat this takbir for no reason, that's a bid'ah. Can you think of any place that this has been happening day in, day out? The haram. A bid'ah which is stuck forever. An Imam who is reciting the Quran, is the recitation of him audible or not audible? Audible. Okay. Then he makes takbir. It's the same microphone, it's the same voice. So if his recitation of the Quran is audible, his takbir is what? Audible. So if it's not audible, then let the one who's repeating repeat all the Fatiha and the recitation as well. So this person is making recitation, then Allahu Akbar. This recitation of his and Allahu Akbar goes into a microphone. The microphone has got habit, rope, wire. This wire goes to a device called the amplifier. The amplifier, from it there is wires, goes to speakers. This person who is repeating the takbir, he's saying Allahu Akbar behind the Imam in a different microphone. And it's got a wire. That wire is connected to the same what? Amplifier. Which connects to the same what? Speaker. So why is he repeating the takbir? For decoration. For decoration. Wallahi, sometimes the Imam's takbir is louder than the takbir of the person who is repeating behind. But this is what we say, a bid'ah stuck and cannot be moved. We have to hear this. Allahu Akbar. We have to hear that. The singing, I call it the singing group behind. Singing, it's not takbir. You know, it's not takbir. So singing group behind the Imam cannot change. Allahul Musta'an. Allahul Musta'an. Allahul Musta'an. Prophet ﷺ, when his voice only was not audible, Abu Bakr, he had made the takbir. Now, if this person who repeats behind the imam had preceded the imam, his salah is what? Batil. So that's one of the things which is disadvantages of repeating something without necessity. So if he precedes the imam, and if he started doing it quickly because he want to catch up with the imam, his prayer is what? Invalid. So if he precedes the imam, or he is now rushing, also his prayer will be invalid for this person who repeats the adhan. And what happens now when the imam says Sami Allahu liman hamida? What does he say? He had missed what, this person? The person who repeats, he's missed what? Sami Allahu liman hamida. He missed it. So the imam says Sami Allahu liman hamida. Instead of he says Sami Allah, he says Rabbana wa lakal hamd. His Sami Allahu is gone. So this is what we call the mukhalafat, the disadvantage that takes place when you start doing something which is incorrect. Last thing please, Shaykh.
He would also say, when the Imam says Allahu Akbar, then say Allahu Akbar.
So when the Imam says Allahu Akbar, then after that you say Allahu Akbar. You don't say Allahu Akbar over the Allahu Akbar of the Imam. So when he says Akbar, say Allahu Akbar and continue. Behind the Imam, you're following the Imam. You're not matching the Imam and you're not racing the Imam. And you're not delaying too much from the Imam. So he says Allahu Akbar, you wait about 1, 2, 3, Allahu Akbar. You don't do that. So he says Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. And I have noticed when I led the prayer in the Maghrib, the ones who are behind me, some of them, they're almost raced me. They're almost gone to the sujood before me. For verily, it's very important that you should not bend your back until you see the Imam forehead is on the floor. So when the Imam is on the floor, regardless if he said Allahu Akbar before that, well before that, you cannot go and bend your back until you see him where? On the floor. Because you could be, mashallah, a person goes to the gym, agile, very quick. And the Imam is a slow turtle, old man. Okay? So if he says Allahu Akbar, and by the time he reaches the ground, you are much faster than him. Boom! You've lost your rak'ah, and then you lost your prayer. So, akhi, you're not going to be racing the Imam. Are you going to finish before the Imam? Are you able to go and say Assalamu alaikum, bye-bye, and leave the Imam? You have to finish with the Imam. So why are you racing him in the prayer? If you're going to finish with the Imam, or you try to push him, like when you drive behind a car, you try to push him. Huh? Come on, faster. You can't push him. So wait till the Imam goes on the floor, then you follow him. That's how we should pray. Otherwise, we're going to be jeopardizing our prayer. By this, alhamdulillah, we come to the end of what we have planned to talk about. In 4 weeks' time, there will be Ramadan. 4 weeks' time, it's going to be just the days before Ramadan, isn't it? The last Jumu'ah before Ramadan. So it's up to you, the administration, talk about the month of Ramadan, or to talk about, I think the month of Ramadan would be better. So I will wait for your decision, inshallah. طيب. If you have any questions, please. Fadlan.
I have a question. There was a brother, he came in to the masjid and he asked, he was sick, and he asked some brothers, I'll repeat it again. There was a brother, he came to the masjid and he was sick, and he asked some brothers to recite Quran on him. And he told that to one of the brothers, and one of the brothers, he announced it after basically announced the brothers to stay behind to recite Quran on the sick person in the masjid. They gathered in a circle around 10 people, 15, with the sick person there. And there was reciting Quran, what was easy for them. So I'm wondering, is that allowed?
What's that got to do with our topic?
Yeah, it's off the topic.
Do you have anything on the topic, please? We'll leave that question, please. Please, can you just stick to the topic? Fadal.
A big question is about the clothes. You mentioned, or in the hadith, or in Sahih Bukhari, and you mentioned the hadith right now, that there were certain clothes that have been prohibited to be dressed during the prayer. My question is about the rida and abaya. It's two different things. Rida have different interpretations in different countries. In my country, rida, it's not the same rida in your country or in our countries. Now my question is, these clothes, the normal one, the most well-known one, the abba, that the Arabs use it, of course they use it as a culture, not as a religion. And they sin, of course. They do whatever they want.
The sin or the saying?
They sin. Even they go wherever they will need. I mean, if you go to the Dubai or anywhere, you see the Arabs. They dress up the same clothes that we consider it's religious, but it's not religious. In Rida, in the country, if you have been in Yemen, there is a clothes which is.
What's the question, brother, please?
The question is this abba that's used by everyone, is it the abba, the rida that's mentioned in hadith, or is it cultural thing in the Arabs?
Okay. The Prophet ﷺ's abba has been mentioned in the hadith. Abba'a is mentioned in the hadith. But the rida basically is a wider word to be used. A rida is anything that which is like the izar on the top, the bottom goes on the top to cover. But the abba'a is more of a, you could say, smart thing. Prophet of Allah, he used to have this whenever he goes to meet the delegates, food, or for the Jumu'ah, for something important. But maybe that the abba'a that is being now these days with the yellow and things and all of that, that's decoration, it's no problem, inshallah, as long as it is not really extravagance. If this abba'a, for example, costs thousands of pounds because of the golden thing there, it is not allowed, of course, as extravagance. But Allah's Messenger, he said, ilbas ma shi'ta. Put on what you like. As long as it is within the frame that is of halal, it is not imitation of the kuffar. It's not a clothes that the kuffar is distinguished with, as long as it does not show the awrah. So I'm not going to tell you, brother, you have to put brown or black or red. And it's as long as it's not libas shuhra. Libas shuhra is a clothes that you want to distinguish yourself from your own Muslim people. So our shuyukh, for example, this scarf. I don't know if you've seen in Yemen, the scarf, the Yemenis, you've seen them like that. If I go to Yemen, I don't put this like this, I tie it up like that. Our Shaykh who is there from Yemen, when he comes to us in Jordan, he takes off this one, he puts it like this. Do you understand me? Not to be distinguished from the brothers. So, putting the sirwal and kameez of the Pakistani in my country, that's the libas shuhra. People will look at you, why are you distinguishing yourself with this? This is a Pakistani dress, you're dressing up in Muslim country like ours, in Jordan, maybe in Saudi Arabia it's normal because lots of Pakistani there. But in my country, that is became now libas shuhra. You want to distinguish yourself from the brothers. So rida is more of a scope, more wider than the abaya. Jazakallah khairan. That is the question of yours. Barakallah feek. Now,
one from the sisters and then to the brother here.
No, and I will come to your question, but always the question to do with the salah is priority.
I know, but
this is, by the way, and your question could have shortened with two. I was waiting for something to do with the prayer. That's why I was did not stop you. Tfaddal.
For women, when covering themselves, are they meant to put their hands inside their sleeves or not? As you mentioned, for the men, are women allowed to put their hands inside their abayas?
The women, when they pray with their palms showing. Their palms are showing. So their abaya has got a sleeve. I understand their abaya has got a sleeve. It's not an abaya that covers their arms. So their hands is supposed to be out. But they're saying, for example, to push their hand inside that sleeve of abaya of hers, that's for the need of the cold. She's cold, for example. But her palms, okay, is allowed to be shown in the prayer. So no problem to show it. Even in the Hajj, Prophet of Allah forbade the woman in State of Ihram to cover her palms and cover her what? Face with a veil. Prohibited on her. She has to show her face, or to put a piece of cloth on top of her face every time there's a man passing. But her hands, لا تلبس القفازين ولا تنتقب المحرمة. The ones who sit in the ihram does not put the gloves, nor she put the veil on her face. Now. No, salamu alaikum. Remember?
I want to know what is the ruling of the kiss of the Quran, because I see it's not evidence on hadith or maybe in
kissing the Mus'haf. This is called Mus'haf. And what is in the Mus'haf is the Quran. Kissing the Mus'haf. Kissing the Mus'haf definitely shows that this person, he is loving the words of Allah, and he feels the words of Allah close to him. And some of them even add after the kissing prostration. Have you seen that? صح ولا لا? Yeah. 3 times. I've learned that when I was a kid. All of that will say to the brother, it's not correct. This they call it a sajda surah, a small prostration. It's like you prostrate into a book, paper. To kiss, if you want to kiss the Quran properly, read it, understand it, and implement it. Again, I say, read it, understand it, and what? Implement it. So many people are still in the first stage, not to do the first stage, which is to read it. And most of us, they read it, they don't what? Understand it. But all of us, they don't implement it. Allah al-Musta'an.
Now, from the sisters, if you wore a sleeveless dress for women, can you pray in it?
Sleeveless dress.
Sleeveless dress. I don't know whether inside or we just plain. Give both scenarios. What would be your answer?
I mean, I'm pretty sure that the sister, she doesn't mean that she's showing her shoulders, because she's showing her shoulder, that means she's showing her arms. Her prayer is invalid. But if it's inside the abaya, it doesn't matter what's inside the abaya, what's inside that bed. If she got nothing, it doesn't matter as long as she covers herself. But to show her arms and to show her, you know, her muscles and all of that in the prayer, it's not allowed. I don't think she means that, inshallah. Now,
if you wore a shirt or dress that has picture on it, as it is a sin to pray with it. I mean by t-shirt, the picture like of a dog or any kind of an animal.
Any picture that's got a ruh. Ruh means soul. And the ruh is in animals and human being. If this picture is an image of a face of a human being, or a face of a dog, living thing, it's called ruh, then this is, first of all, that is for the prayer, it might jeopardize your prayer. But in terms of sin, it's a sin. Whether you are praying with it or not praying with it, it's not allowed. It's not allowed to have a picture with an image like this. So shirts, fortunately our girls, they buy shirts with, you know, images on them. Allah al-Musta'an. But we have to be as well very kind and not harsh to our youth. A youth came to the Prophet ﷺ. I'm asking, the fitna at the time of the Prophet of Allah, is it as the fitna now that we're facing here, or less? The time of the Prophet, less or more? Less. The fitna here is more. In the click of a finger, girls come. True or not? You don't have to click it on. Just write. True or not? So he comes to the Prophet ﷺ. It's a messenger of Allah. Gives me permission to fornicate. Allahu Akbar. Gives me permission to fornicate. He wants a permission from whom? from the Prophet of Allah. So companions want to beat him up. Prophet of Allah is talking to him. Son, do you want this to happen to your mother? No. So well, people, they don't want them to happen to their mothers. Do you want this to happen to your sister? No. So well, people, they don't want it to happen to their sisters. Do you want it to happen to your aunts? No. Well, people, they don't want to have them to their aunts, maternal or paternal. And your woman is either what? Mother or a sister or maternal aunt or paternal aunt. Said, well, people, they don't want them to happen to their own aunts. Then he puts his hand on his chest and he says, Allahumma gfir lahu wa tahhir qalbahu wa hassin farjah. He didn't tell him, go away, a'udhu billahi wa shaitan. A person is asking for fornication to the Prophet ﷺ. Imagine your son comes to ask you that. First of all, he said, O Lord, forgive his sin. O Lord, purify his heart. O Lord, protect his private part. The boy since that time did not do anything except for halal. Khalas. So be gentle with the youth. Be gentle with the youth. Further.
Is it required for men to roll up their trousers before salah? Maybe to the ankle, because normally it is down, but when they pray, they just fold it up to roll their trousers before salah.
Right. This is a very good question. First of all, according to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, نهى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن كفت الثياب في الصلاة. Prophet of Allah, he forbade to keft. Keft means to roll. Keft. But it doesn't mean here that you are in the prayer and the prohibition is to do the keft while you're praying, where there's no problem if you did the keft before you entered the prayer and you prayed with the sleeves are rolled back. That's a misunderstanding. And keft الصلاة الثياب في الصلاة means that to enter the prayer while you're having what? Your sleeves rolled. So if you did like this and you entered the prayer, you have made a prohibited act. What is the prohibited act? That the Prophet ﷺ, he said, don't enter the prayer while you have this. What's the hikmah? Well, the Prophet of Allah said it. And also, all your clothes pray with you. So don't fold it. Okay? Do not fold it. Now what about the trousers? Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, مَا أَسْفَلُ الْكَعْبَيْنِ فَفِي النَّارِ. What is below the ankles is in the fire. What is below the ankles is in the fire. Below the ankles of the fire, what is that? The garment or the person who's got this garment on? I mean, the garment's got nothing to do wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. It's the person who puts a garment lower than his ankles, he's in the fire. Is that because of this, I want to roll my trouser in order not to go below the ankles. Wrong on wrong doesn't make right. So if I need to make the fulfillment of those two hadiths, number one, not to make my trousers to go below the ankles, well, purchase a trouser that is above the ankles. If you can't, cut them. If you can't, raise them. Don't fold them. How do I raise them? Like Abu Bakr used to do. كان يتعاهد في إزرته كان استرخاء. In his إزرة إزار, the bottom lower half of his, used to be slack. That means longer. So he used to pull it up. He didn't roll it. So you pull your trousers just a bit there. You pull it like that, and you pray in them. But as I said, do not intentionally go and buy a trouser which is below your ankles. Don't, I would say, do such a thing and start saying, well, I don't think it is. People, you see, what they do, they adopt the ideology and then they find a proof to support it. That's not our deen. Our deen, from the proofs, you take your ideology. If you already had made up your mind, oh, I don't think it is a problem to have my trousers or my izar below my ankles, as long as it is not for pride. So you adapt this, and then you start looking for any scholar to support you. And you have plenty, don't worry. I have plenty to support you. And the Prophet ﷺ, he had mentioned 2 punishments. One, for the one who does not do it out of pride, and the one who does it what? Out of pride. The one who does not do it out of pride, he's in the fire. And the one who does it for the pride, because he wants to show off, and he's having his clothes dragging below his ankles, is worse than the fire. You know what is it? Allah will not look at him, nor he will talk to him. And that's worse. Allah will not look at him, or even talk to him. So, ya akhi, why should you live into this pride out of pride? Just keep away from that. And make your clothes above your ankle. Do you have any questions? I think we need to pray, because I don't want to. So I will just answer the question of the brother here, which he had asked about if a person has been possessed, or it's called illness. Just a normal illness. A normal illness. And he wanted somebody to recite Quran. So in the masjid, so the group started reciting Quran on him. Okay. I don't want we turn our masajid into a hospital of recitation. Every person comes and says, "Ill brothers, come and recite," and we start together, mashallah, give recitation on him, and off you go. No need to go to the doctor, brother. Khalas. The ruqyah is to be done to the person who is ill in a way which is not supposed to be in a particular jama'ah, like you have just said, or a particular thing that will be followed as a trend. It will be done all the time in that way. There's no problem if you've seen somebody who's ill to read his ruqyah on him. And the ruqyah is not just Quran, it's an ad'iyah as well. For the Prophet of Allah, he did not recite Quran when he came to pay a visit to Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. رب الناس أذهب الباس واشفي أنت الشافي لا شفاء إلا شفاء وشفاء لا يغادر سقما. Not recite Quran. So the Quran, yes, but which Quran are you going to recite? Al-Baqarah? Al-Imran? Which one? There are verses, the Prophet of Allah, he recited them for the sake of the person who is ill. For example, Al-Mu'awwidhatain, Al-Fatiha, okay, Ayat al-Kursi. And this is more to the possessed and the ayn. But in terms of when somebody is ill, you say, La ba's tahur, insha'Allah. La ba's tahur, insha'Allah. These are the ad'iyah. And those people, maybe, that brother, maybe he was really very ill. Is that right? He was very ill. And maybe he's got cancer or something like this. Yeah, I'm anticipating. Okay.
He came to the masjid and he said,
okay, so what you need to do, take him to one of the rooms, not here, it's in the middle. Take him to the room, and the Shaykh and the Imam, no problem, he would make dua for him and recite to him. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cure him. I don't know the person, I ask Allah to cure him, inshallah. And wallahi, the dua is a weapon that people they don't know about. It's a very big weapon. Just make dua, Allah al-ghayb. And I would urge people as well, those people who are ill, to give sadaqah. Dawu mardakum bis sadaqat. Give sadaqah for the sake of the illness. And you never know that Allah will cure you. And I don't want to delay you more than this. Please forgive me for delaying you for half an hour. Jazakallah khairan. Subhanallah.
Jazakallah khair. Our next dars will be on the 26th of April, inshallah. So keep that in mind. Our next dars will be on the 26th of April, inshallah.